Bases dropped on a beautiful yet slightly chilly Monday morning here in Atlanta, Georgia. September 23rd. Soccer down here is alive for an Overreaction Monday. Y'all know the drill by now. You use that hashtag, Overreaction Monday. You share your reactions, whether they are over, under, on par, whatever kind of reactions you have to the weekend at large. It can be about Atlanta United's 3-1 win over San Jose. It can be about Joseph Martinez having to leave the match injured. It can be about the other matches in Major League Soccer over the weekend, because there's a ton to get into there. Whatever your reactions are, we'll get into it throughout the show today. We'll also be joined by Jessica Sharman in hour number 2 and get her thoughts on the Atlanta match with San Jose, because there's a lot of talking points coming out of this. I've got highlights for you. We're going to skip the first half. 1-1, early goal for Justin Merrim, canceled out by a cross from Christian Espinoza that goes off of Brad Kazan and into the goal. It's 1-1. There's a red card to San Jose. Things start to get a little nutty. The second half, it gets really nutty, and we're going to pick it up with Brad Kazan making his biggest contribution to the day.
Houston again trying to dribble on Miles. Plays a nice ball into the near corner. Salinas will dribble into the box right side. Salinas cross to the back post. Bounces. Lima pops it around Gressel. Then around Escobar into the 6. A shot. Guzan off his line. Parries it away. And cleared by Nagbe. Big play by Guzan.
Felt like everybody was lunging, flying, trying to keep that one out. I think Emerson Heineman made a diving header from a push-up position to help clear it. Then Daniel Vega says, oh, okay, you guys want to make big plays. I can make big plays. Here's a big save in the 84th minute.
Here's LGP off the throw. Drifting into the center of the park, 35 yards from goal. Now Miles Robinson comes up to help him. He accepts the ball, plays down the middle to Vasquez. Back heel to Heineman, edge of the box, shot! And it's deflected by Vega wide of the back post.
Daniel Vega was ridiculous, and he kept it going. Here's another big save from Vega.
Gressel keeps it in play. Gressel another cross. Penalty spot. Miles Robinson. A big save by Vega again. And it's volleyed out by Youngberth. Unbelievable goalkeeping, Daniel Vega.
It was right after that save on the Miles Robinson header that, for some reason, Matias Almeida was sent off, which is still one of the most baffling things I've ever seen live. So Almeida's gone. Atlanta still pushing forward, looking for a go-ahead goal. This is all without Joseph Martinez by this stage. And Darlington Nagbe takes care of business.
Nagbe digging for the ball. Nagbe's got it somehow. Nagbe then turns around Erickson and comes forward. Nagbe with the lane down the center of the park. Nagbe ahead to Heineman in the box. Keeper off his line. Heineman scores! In the 90th minute! Incredible!
Atlanta wasn't done. They put the game away just a couple minutes later.
Erickson dribbles past Nagbe, and then Heineman takes it away from him. And then it's sent by Adams back to Villalba down the near touchline. Look out here, 3v2. Played ahead now to Vasquez, running on in the box. Here's a cross, Pitti, right at the spot. Shot, score! They are putting it away!
Mike was a little excited. I was a little excited. I think all the 42,000 plus were excited. The end of the game, John, was about as loud as I've ever heard that building. MLS Cup, Open Cup final, any other big game included. It was insanity at the end of that game.
It was insanity pretty much for the last 15 minutes. And you get these waves and waves and waves of emotion, and you have a crowd that is concerned. They're pensive. And that word was unintentional, having to do with the center ref, and we'll get to him, I guess, in a little bit. But you have a crowd that wants to have a release, and they want to have, they want to be there, and they're trying to exhort, and they're trying to push, and they're on their hands, and you have these conflicting emotions happening. And then 2-1 happens and 3-1 happens. You thought it was loud at 2-1, then 3-1 happens, and final whistle. And I think the way to look at this, or one of the ways to look at it, is that you saw a team that was without their star up top, and they dusted themselves off. They found ways to do it. They found ways to win, and they did it as much for them as they did it for Joseph. And to have that kind of an effort where it's like, all right, he's not here. We've got to do it ourselves. You hitch up your britches and you go. It was, as I'm sitting here, my hand moving in circles really doesn't do well for radio, but to have that kind of growth and then just push and pressure and release, I think that it pretty much blew the roof off of the building by the time it was done. But it was a tremendous effort without Joseph being there. And I think that it showed a lot to the guys, and I think it showed a lot to the fans as a result of everything that happened after Joseph left the pitch.
We'd seen this team play with some guts in Orlando without Joseph. They found a way to advance in the Open Cup final. We saw them play with some guts in that Open Cup final as they were holding on towards the end. Saw them play with some guts against Club America in the Campeones Cup match. I think we've seen this team display a strength that maybe we haven't seen as much of in previous years. Darlington Nagbe and Emerson Hyndman both spoke to the media after the game and spoke about missing Joseph, and we don't know anything yet about how long that could be. Frank DeBoer speaks to the media this morning, and if it happens while we're on the air, we will let you know what we see and hear, but not expecting an update before then, but stay tuned. If anything happens, we will obviously let you know. Emerson Hyndman said this after the match about players having to step up for Joseph.
Yeah, and I think that's been kind of happening all season. People have stepped in and have played big roles in performances, and obviously Brandon came in and did really well. Was happy for him, and got an assist today. On another day, could have had a goal, and we're going to need everyone in this push. Especially when playoffs come around and things like that. So obviously Joseph's a huge part of the way we play. Scores tons of goals for us, but we need everyone.
Darlington Nagbe chimed in as well.
He single-handedly does most of our scoring, so well, it's not just that. He frees up the game for us with his runs that he makes getting behind lines. So having him off the field, there's just a little bit more attention on everyone. But hopefully he's okay. I haven't spoken to him yet or the staff, but I hope he's okay.
Nagbe mentioned Joseph's work off the ball, and Emerson Hyndman mentioned Brandon Vasquez. Vasquez, that's been the biggest improvement in his game since he came to Atlanta, is his work off the ball and his movement off the ball. I thought he was excellent coming in and in taking up that role when Joseph went out injured. Vasquez was involved in the second goal. Obviously, he gets the assist, but he was involved in creating opportunities throughout, and a lot of it was due to his movement, not just being stationary in the center, but starting to pull defenders with him with runs outside of that central area.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about positional gravity is the term that we've used in the past. And when you have Brandon Vasquez working his way around and not just working things in a straight line, but trying to draw defenders toward him to open up space to create opportunities, I think that's been a development that we've seen with Brandon. It's been a good development to see. That has been good to see that period. But to have Brandon being able to have that positional gravity where folks are drawn toward him and he's pulling defenders away to create those pockets, and it gives you those two chances late to put some distance between yourselves and San Jose. Great development to see with his game.
Nagbe talked about players stepping up in general, dealing with the adversity. He was one of them. This is what he had to say about the group.
No, I think it says a lot. It says a lot. Even this game, just in general. The past two games were different. This game was different, and capitalizing on mistakes that they made. Joseph going off the field, guys stepping out. Emerson had some big chances after that. Brandon, Tito. So guys stepped up and created for us with Joseph going off the field.
Nagbe mentioned Hyndman, and he assisted on that goal. It's kind of a broken play a little bit in the middle of the field where Nagbe gets on it and just carries the ball forward, pulls all the defenders to him, splits defenders with a pass over to Emerson Hyndman. This is what he was thinking during that sequence.
Just try to drive with the ball. We have spoken about, if you do eliminate your guy, try to drive with the ball and then force another guy to step to you, which is what happened. And then Emil's open. Great touch and finish from him.
And let's hear from Emerson Hyndman on his thoughts just about the game as a whole. It was a really unique match because of the way San Jose plays, and Atlanta had to adjust to that.
Yeah, I mean, the first half, we knew they were going to kind of almost man mark in a way, and so, that was one of the first times I've seen a pitch so open, but at the same time closed. As a player, you got a man right behind you the whole game, even though you're going into positions where you don't think people will follow you. So it was a strange first half. I think as soon as they kind of got their red card, it opened up a little bit for us, obviously.
It's interesting the way Heineman put it, saying that the match was so open yet so closed because there's just defenders in places you don't expect to have defenders following you. So, yeah, the field's wide open, but you're not necessarily. It was very different for, I think, your casual fan who's watching this like, wait a minute, what's going on? This game feels very different. It was.
No doubt. And we do have early returns from Doug Robertson before any media availability involving Frank DeBoer and Atlanta United, involving Joseph's injury. He's just posted something to AJC.com.
Well, you can go ahead and take it.
Opening paragraph. Atlanta United's Joseph Martinez will miss several weeks with a knee injury, according to a person familiar with the situation. The timetable would mean the striker could return by MLS playoffs.
I thought, seeing it live, that it was more of an ankle foot, but sometimes when the ankle has an issue, and this one, it didn't look like the foot rolled over too much. That's what was kind of awkward to see what happened. Sometimes an ankle can destabilize the knee as well if it's more of a high ankle sprain kind of situation. I'm not surprised that it's not season ending, because I don't think there's any way he would have been allowed to hop back on the field at all if it was any risk of that. It's not ideal, obviously. I mean, duh. Don't have to tell you that. But if he's going to be out until the playoffs, you got to remember the schedule now. It's different. You have that international break after decision day before the first game of the playoffs. And right now, Atlanta would be set to play on October 19th. It's a Saturday. That's not quite, I mean, it's a little less than a month away, but that's manageable. It's not ideal. It's manageable to have him ready to contribute there. Miguel Almiron, last 2 years, had injuries late in the season, came back and finished the year out. Almiron last year, first game of the postseason, was only able to go 45 minutes at Yankee Stadium. You hope you can get more than 45 out of Joseph in a knockout game, because that's what you're going to be looking at this season. But that's a little more promising than I think some people feared at the very beginning of this when he left the field.
And more news from Doug Robertson this morning. Atlanta United captain Michael Parkhurst will retire at the end of the season, according to a person familiar with the situation. Parkhurst informed teammates of his decision Monday morning before opening training for Wednesday's key game against NYCFC.
We talk a lot on this show about the legends of Major League Soccer and American soccer, and how some don't get enough credit for whatever reason, and usually it revolves around the national team. Michael Parkhurst is absolutely one of those guys. Parkhurst has had one of the best careers for an American defender, period. And you don't win MLS Cup last year without Michael Parkhurst. You don't have the strong character that this team has. What we talked about earlier with showing those guts, showing that intestinal fortitude, showing that testicular fortitude, showing that with this team. You don't have that if your captain from day one doesn't set that. And Parkhurst is a guy that he's not a rah-rah guy. He's not going to be up making a bunch of big speeches in front of everyone, but he leads this group in the absolute correct way to get the most out of him. And even the second half of the season, where we haven't seen him on the field in a while, he is still critical to setting that example and setting that tone, and he will be very important the rest of the way. I'm not exactly surprised. I hadn't heard any inkling of it, but you're at that point with his career, and with him not seeing the field as much, it makes sense. But Parkhurst was the perfect captain for this club from day one. The absolute perfect decision.
Yeah, and the way things are with captains, just because you're not openly vocal doesn't mean you don't get your message across. You don't have to yell to sit there and have an impact with folks. It just takes conversation. It just takes getting with somebody, and there are different ways to get messages done. Cap has always done it that way. It's always been more matter of fact. You do it and you say things. It's not one of these yell, rant, rave, scream kind of things. And it's just as effective when you're there with that one-on-one communication, being matter of fact and laying into somebody. It's just like, all right, this is how things need to be. Perfect captain off the top. And I would love to see him continue with the organization in a coaching capacity when he hangs them up, because you love to have that kind of influence from the beginning on the field, but then to continue to have him with that influence going forward when your playing days are done. I hope he stays around and continues.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. You don't know what Parkhurst is thinking about doing with the rest of his career and what direction he wants to go. I think he'll stay involved in the game in some capacity, and if he chooses for that to be in Atlanta, it'd be an asset to the club. Captains can be very different. You have to have the right captain for your group. Some groups need that in-your-face, threatening kind of captain, like a Roy Keane, for example. Yeah. Some groups don't. Some groups don't respond to that. And you just have to feel the group out. And what was great about the situation is you were able to, just like we talked about from day one, you were able to create a team and a tactical system for the first two seasons because of what you had on the field with Miguel Almiron. You were able to create a mood and a vibe and a club atmosphere because of your captain from day one, Michael Parkhurst. And that has been essential to the way this team operates. So Parkhurst will have a lot to do off the field with this run to the playoffs, trying to defend a title. Because, look, without Joseph, it's going to be difficult. First seed in the East is going to be very difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. We saw teams drop points yesterday. We saw NYC nearly lose in Dallas. They're able to hold on and get the point. Saw Philadelphia lose at Red Bull Arena. It's not out of the realm of possibility for Atlanta to figure this out and get results in these three games that they need. It's also not out of the realm of possibility to say that losing Joseph for the rest of the regular season, if that's the case, is too much to handle. None of that takes away from what the postseason can be, because when you get there, it's one and done. It's win in advance. It's not looking about prettiness, not looking about style. It's looking about results. Atlanta United has shown this season in U.S. Open Cup and in the Campeones Cup, in those kinds of games, they've taken care of business. That's what they're going to have to do in the postseason, with or without Joseph Martinez. And the role that Michael Parkhurst has day in, day out, leading this group is very, very important. Lots to unwrap. We'll be getting into all of it this morning as we go. Please share your thoughts with us on Twitter on an Overreaction Monday. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today. at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. Overreaction Monday. I'm assuming there's a few reactions happening to our friend Doug Robertson's latest reports. Michael Parkhurst set to retire at the end of the season. Joseph Martinez expected to be out for several weeks. Still leaves the playoffs in possibility for Joseph Martinez to play a role there, but it looks like the next three matches at Yankee Stadium Wednesday, in Montreal, and in Decision Day at home versus New England, you won't see Joseph Martinez, with the goal of having him available for the first round of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference semifinals. I'm sure there's a few reactions to all of that, so let's hit it.
Yeah. The early reaction to Captain announcing, or through Doug anyway, the Doug report about the Michael Parkhurst retirement is a teary-eyed emoji from Ike Man for Parky.
He's been great. I mean, it cracks me up. When he was signed, there were people who were saying, he lost a step, and he's not what he used to be, and Columbus can afford to let him go. And yeah, not so much. Not so much. He was a perfect fit, and he was a player that obviously Tata Martino leaned on a lot. And I think he's a player that, in a very different way, Frank DeBoer's leaned on a lot. Early in the season, when you had injuries, Parky played all over the field on the back line when it was a four-man back line. You go to three, the speed can be a little bit more of an issue. There hasn't been a spot for Parkhurst. That doesn't mean there won't be, and it doesn't mean that he's not going to impact this group off the field. But
right.
He has been the consummate leader for this team. So, it's one of those that Carlos Bocanegra, knowing Michael Parkhurst and knowing that he's the right guy to build this club around from the defense. Parkhurst was a huge benefit to Leandro Gonzalez-Perez's development. I think he was also a huge benefit to Miles Robinson's development. That's key, and that's what Parkhurst has brought to the table for Atlanta United.
Joe McCurdy last night was watching Squeeze at the Tabernacle, and he can't stop picturing Darren Eales as lead singer Glenn Tilbrook. Joe wants to know if he has an Atlanta United problem.
Yes, he does. That's a very random thing going on there.
Yes. Daniel Price has a very busy morning. He's heading to the dentist's office, and he's having a wisdom tooth extraction. So he got in a lot of pre-show Monday morning thoughts for overreaction. So we'll go through them here. He says, what he heard through the grapevine is that Joseph isn't as bad as we thought. He hopes it's true. Our playoff chances.
Yeah. We can skip the heard through grapevines, and we know more about where Joseph is other than national reporters who are going on both sides of the argument about where Joseph stands.
Maybe him getting hurt could be sort of a rallying cry, and we addressed this in the first segment, to the rest of the team and help them find that next gear for the postseason. I thought the game against San Jose was one of our better ones. A lot of our players found what they needed to secure the win.
It's a different one. I mean, I don't think you can really compare that game to anything else. You're not going to have a lot of takeaways tactically from it because it's such a unique type of opponent. It's just not something that you can take a lot of direct correlations out of the way the team played. You can take correlations about the way the team handled situations. You can take things about the feel, but not so much the way the team played. I mean, the way the game played out, Atlanta had 12 shots on target. Vega made 9 saves. It was pretty wild. 18 shots total. Of course, you had a lot of the possession. In the second half, you dominated it with 71% after Espinoza was sent off in the first half. So, you only conceded 3 shots, 2 of them on target. Brad Gazan had to make a big save. The goal wasn't a shot. It comes off of his arm. I thought maybe it had deflected off of Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, but Gazan gets the own goal credit for it. And you deal with the challenge that San Jose presents. I mean, even after the red card, it's not like they were bunkering and not trying to find a way out. They were looking to play on the counter. And you look at the substitutions. I mean, they brought on 2 forwards. They brought on Houston and Rios to try to change the game up top and give them a way out. When they had to substitute, I believe it was Judson, when he came off, they brought on Rios. Rios is not going to do anything that Judson was doing following Pity Martinez all over the field. That was in the 83rd minute. That was not a move where they could have brought on Anibal Godoy and just parked the bus and said, all right, like for like, we're going to sit back. They thought they could find a goal and win the thing. And that says a lot about the way that San Jose approaches the match. It was a test. San Jose still played the same idea that they had been playing, even with 10 players. They were still putting pressure on Atlanta all over the field. It's a very different style. We talked about it last week. It's not a pressing system like the Red Bulls or other teams that do it. It's different. It's a lot of individual pressure rather than coordinated team pressure. Like, you don't have a line of confrontation because you're confronting everybody everywhere. So it's just a different idea. And Emerson Hyndman talked about it. It's a match where the field is very spread out and there's a lot of space. But you're also individually closed down typically before you get a chance to really breathe. That space, Atlanta in the first half took advantage of it with Miles Robinson leading it forward often because San Jose had their free man defensively helping with Joseph most of the time. And a lot of times that was Youngfirth. So they couldn't mark everyone man-to-man. They had to pick a defender to leave. LGP had a long run. Franco Escobar had a long run. And after that, it was, all right, we're going to make sure they don't go. Miles can go. And he did. And he'd carry it forward into the attacking half. And that was working to a degree. It was a wild game. I loved the attitude of Atlanta United in it. I think once they kind of got their heads around the challenge that they were going to be facing, they embraced it. They played quicker. They were more decisive because you had to be. If you're not, San Jose will kill you. So they took the challenge that the game presented and got the most out of it. And that was impressive. And you look at the subs for Atlanta, they weren't, subtle. They weren't shy kind of substitutions either. When you're bringing on, Tito Villalba for Justin Merrim, and Villalba's playing as a left wing back, and that was exposed a couple of times. Didn't matter. You're still going for it. You bring on Brandon Vasquez for Eric Remedi, you're absolutely going for it. It's a bold set of moves. And Frank de Boer pushed the right buttons. Matias Almeida pushed a lot of the right buttons. Just couldn't see it through, and he was on the field to see it at the end anyway. We'll talk about that later. It's more of a sidebar to it because it didn't affect the result, but Chris Penso had himself a day.
Mm-hmm. Daniel has one more thought. It's a league thought, so I'm going to save it for the league segment when we go over what happened on the weekend.
Okay.
Chris Hutchison, how do we adjust the lineup for the NYCFC match? I'm not convinced Tito's ready for 90 minutes. Perhaps Vasquez and then Tito. Also, would you start Lorenowitz or Remedi? # should we panic Monday?
No, you don't panic, but I would start Vasquez. I think he's a better fit right now, more like for like, and that movement off the ball is key. I think it's Vasquez and Pitti. Hyndman. I still like Hyndman in the mix right now. For some reason, Hyndman and Vasquez seem to have a good pairing. They seem to be on the same wavelength. If Remedi is ready to go, I would start him in this match. I think the compressed space suits him well. If he's at all tired and you're thinking about Montreal and you're just thinking in general, go with Jeff. I think either one is fine, but I would lean to Remedi. And the rest of the group would be the rest of the group. Tito would be your option off the bench to change it up depending on where you need it. But I think Vasquez is going to be the move that makes everything be as consistent as it has been, and you want that right now just to make it easier for the team to cope.
John Roper with a couple of thoughts. His first one is, what are the soccer gods' sacrifice protocols for injuries?
That I do not know.
And then he follows it up by saying that we would not have MLS Cup if at MF Parkhurst weren't our captain, #overreaction Monday.
Nope. This club wouldn't be what it was if you didn't have Parkhurst as the captain from day one. And go back and watch the video today at some point. It's going way back in the Atlanta United archives of when I believe it was Tata and Carlos both pulled Parkhurst aside at Flowery Branch, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And they were training up there to tell him that he was going to be the captain back in early February of 17. Go back and check that video out, and that's where it all started. It was a very cool piece to put out there, something you don't normally get to see, those conversations. And it was the 100% correct decision.
Joe Bost said he thought last week about Parkey and his situation and kind of thought he might hang him up. His importance to this team cannot be overlooked. His persona as the glue to this team and backline brought Atlanta United the cup. I hope he continues in soccer in some capacity.
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, he's got so much to give. He's such a smart player, and he was the type of defender that we need more of in the United States. So if there's anything he can do to help bridge that gap and help develop young defenders who, might not be the biggest, might not be the tallest, might not be the most physical, but are great soccer players. Hopefully Parkhurst can be in that kind of role because we need more of those. We just don't have enough. I think too often it's easy to look at scouting players and decide that, well, we're just going to take the biggest center back we can, or, that kid's big, let's put him as a center back. He doesn't have to be able to play. We're not worried about that. He can just boot it long. No, not in the modern game anymore. Parkhurst is a guy who is a little bit ahead of his time in the United States as a center back who could play and was very comfortable on the ball, and it was essential to creating the style and the philosophy that is Atlanta United with soccer players in every position on the field.
And then John wants to know, any word on Gressel? He was looking gimpy for spells in the match.
I was worried about him in the match, but he was able to see it out. I think he was okay at the end. We haven't heard anything. We'll see if Frank de Boer mentions anything today, but yeah, I thought he was going to be subbed out a couple of times. They did check him for an ACL injury. That was the check that was going on when he was injured on the field. But he was able to grind it out, and it was important. I think he was laboring a bit, and he definitely looked sore. But if he's not able to go, then it's a little bit trickier discussion because if you want to move Franco Escobar over there, that means you need to change your center back pairing. And is it Parkhurst? Is it Pogba who comes in to allow Escobar to move as the right wing back? That's where you have depth, but every move is going to require some thought because some of them are not exact like-for-like kind of moves, and they create some domino effects. So Escobar can play there. We saw it last year during the postseason, but you like him at center back because of his speed, and that allows others to go forward and be even more aggressive because Escobar can recover so well. It's a complicated situation, but have not heard anything to lead you to think that Gressel wouldn't be able to go on Wednesday.
And Nick Alifi, who is already in mid-morning form, getting ready for soccer over there tonight at the Brew House from 6 to 8, has alerted us that Parkey has posted an official statement to his Twitter account.
Well, maybe John will be able to rip that audio, possibly kind of, sort of. We'll see what we can do during the break. It's a 53-minute video, or 53-second video, not 53 minutes. That would be a long statement, Michael Parkhurst. That'd be a long statement from Parkey. It's 53 seconds. So we will get to that after the break and see if we can pull that audio for you guys if you can't check it out. But go to Parkhurst's Twitter, MF Parkhurst, to check that out right now. Just posted a couple minutes ago.
Yes. So we'll do what I can during the break and see how quickly I can turn something. Katie Weaver. Immediately before the match, the Argentines in the starting 11, led by PT, ran over to Almeida and some staff to exchange hugs and high fives. I haven't seen this before. Remind me of the PT-LGP Remedi relationship with Almeida. #Reaction Monday.
Well, it's not necessarily that. I mean, Remedi and LGP played for him, but Matias Almeida is a legend in Argentina. Like, this is a World Cup player in Argentina. So that happens. I mean, it happens anywhere in the world when you get Argentine players, or honestly, not even just Argentine players, just players from the same country or managers from the same country who have any kind of a relationship, or even if it's just a fleeting relationship, they know one another from the game. You see that kind of thing. Almeida is one of the most liked guys, and that's what surprised me about him getting sent off, because he's celebrating his goalkeeper playing a blinder, and he gets sent off. I don't know. But, yeah, there's a ton of respect for Matias Almeida in Argentina. And the guys who played for him, obviously I think everybody who plays for Almeida loves the style of play that he has them play. But somebody like Pitti, who I know didn't play for him directly at the club level, some association with him, would know of him or has had interactions with him and is going to show that respect. So it's a mark of respect.
Shiva says she expects a huge ovation for Parkey in our end of regular season game. Hope he stays with the club for a long time. Also regarding Joseph, I'm perfectly okay with not rushing him back. We all want to see him in the playoffs, but I want to see him in CCL more.
Oh, see, I don't think that's even an issue. That's the thing that it really spun out of control after the injury. I don't think CCL in February is any kind of a concern with this injury. That's the stuff you can't overreact to. I think it's if he hadn't come back on the field, okay, maybe. Then you don't know if they checked for an ACL. Then you don't know if it's something longer term. But the fact that he came back on and tried to do it, that made me think that it's not going to be months. Now, could it knock him out of the playoffs? Sure. At that point, I didn't know. But I wasn't worried about CCL at all. That's an overreaction. Playoffs, you hope he's able to go because he's going to help you win. He's going to give you a better chance of winning. You hope that he can get there. And now it's just a race against time for him to be able to contribute in the postseason.
The Colonel, Morning Colonel, says the injury to Joseph and the end of his scoring streak make the victory bittersweet, but 3 righteous points. There's more to San Jose than a system change, and this is a direct quote. They darn good at that individual marquee thingy, end quote.
Yeah, people have oversimplified San Jose as they man mark everywhere. I mean, kind of. It's more about it's not man mark exactly because they will trade off. It's not, oh, my guy's beaten, then, all right, well, we're screwed. No, they trade off. They communicate. It's just the fact that it's not necessarily about positions or structure or any of that with San Jose. As Almeida said, it's the soccer that puts a smile on your face and the kind of game that you played as a kid. It feels like a pickup game where you have a bunch of players in the same color shirt and you're going to figure it out on the fly and you're going to go. And you're just committed to working hard and you're committed to challenging everything and not letting the other team have anything easy. And that's how it plays out. And it's very different. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of communication. It takes a lot of fitness. But San Jose has been able to do that. And yeah, the system change is a big part of it because to be able to get that out of a group that, for the most part, was constructed to play on the counter under Michael Starr, that shows Almeida's quality. To be able to get a player like Magnus Eriksson, who was a leading scorer in Sweden, to be a box-to-box number 8 and defend and attack and create and score goals, that says a lot about Matias Almeida. I think Almeida has done the job to be the manager of the year. I don't think he gets it. I think Bradley does. But I think he should get it because of what he's done with a squad that, by all accounts, should not be able to play this way. It's not that. It's not that because that happens all the time. It's not just that. It's the fact that they're playing in about as opposite of a way as you can play from how they were built. I mean, there's really no other more extreme difference than sitting and playing on the counter and the way San Jose plays. So to be able to take a group that was built one way and do the other, that's really impressive. And Almeida should get that Coach of the Year award. Let's take a break here and come back and talk a little bit about what happened around the league, because there's a lot of results that make the playoff picture look just a little different going into the week. And we've got midweek games to get into, not just Atlanta. So let's set the table on the weekend that was in MLS right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. SDH. Lots of stuff this morning to get into. Atlanta United has officially announced Michael Parkhurst and his retirement at the end of the season. Parkhurst issued the statement on his Twitter, and we'll try to get to that as well. But Carlos Bocanegra said, "We want to congratulate Michael on an illustrious career and thank him for immense contributions to Atlanta United. His career accolades speak for themselves, but during his time in Atlanta, he was a consummate professional and played an integral role for us both on and off the field. In addition to solidifying our backline for the 2018 MLS Cup championship run, he was also an influential figure in building our club's culture, and we're forever indebted to him for that. We wish him the best in his future endeavors, and he'll always be welcome back at Atlanta United." So a couple things about Parkhurst's career, if you haven't followed it from the beginning. 15 professional seasons in Atlanta, MLS Cup, Open Cup, Campeones Cup. 10 seasons in MLS, 6-time All-Star, 3-time Fair Play Award winner, Defender of the Year in 2007, MLS Best 11 in 2007, Humanitarian of the Year in 2006, Rookie of the Year in 2005. He will be speaking to the media after training today as well. Took Columbus to MLS Cup in 2015. Started his career with New England, where he went to the playoffs, I think, every year. 10 MLS seasons, he's been in the playoffs, 9 of them. He's been to MLS Cup 5 times. Unbelievable career in MLS. Then he spent time in Europe, 6 seasons there. He was an integral part of Nordjylland's, some of their best years, 2 domestic cups, a Super League title. He played in the Champions League, one of the most decorated Americans in the Champions League in terms of minutes. I mean, it's unbelievable. The biggest black mark on his career, in my opinion, is the fact that he only received 25 caps. That's craziness. There was a lot of competition, and Atlanta's technical director, Carlos Bocanegra, is one of the guys that was competing with Parkhurst for minutes. But Parkhurst was a player that I think should have seen the field more for the U.S. men's national team. And that's the only negative. That's the only negative in his career, and that's out of his control. Parkhurst is just a player that hopefully the type of player that gets celebrated more in this league for their career, because he's exactly what young defenders should aspire to be. That's the type of role model that you want. And I'm glad Bocanegra mentioned the stuff that Parkhurst has done off the field in creating the club's culture, always being there for the unified team, always being there for community events. He's done a lot of different things with Soccer in the Streets, for example. He showed up at the West End Station Soccer Project. He's a guy who, beyond his work as a player, he's just the right guy you want involved with your club because he's a great representative for it. And he gets how important it is to be that guy. Parkhurst will absolutely be missed, and can't wait to see what he has to say to the media today.
Ricky Ricardo, along those same lines, says, I really hope Parky can get his due for how much quality he has as long as he's had it. I don't think Atlanta United is as successful without him. Hashtag, oh, captain, my captain.
If you went out and got a different center back, you're probably not going to be as successful as you were with Parkhurst. It just wouldn't happen because of the whole package. His abilities fit what Tata Martino wanted to do. His leadership was needed for an expansion team, and everything he did off the field and on to create the culture. You don't get those things with just anybody. So they nailed it with that signing. It was one of the best that Atlanta's had from day one.
Chris Hutchison is having a hashtag Maudlin Monday. First Joseph and now Parkhurst.
It happens. I mean, yeah. It's part of the gig. It's just how these things go sometimes. John was busy during the break.
Yes, he was.
And he has the Parkhurst statement from his Twitter that we will play for you right now.
Well, the time has come for me, unfortunately. This will be my last season as a professional. I know I'm one of the lucky ones to be able to say that I've really, really enjoyed what I've been able to do the last 15 years. To kick a soccer ball and get paid for it has been an absolute dream come true. There are a lot of people I need to thank that have helped me along the way, and I'll do so after the season. For now, I do want to thank my family, though, for their love, their support, the sacrifices they've made in order to help me see out my dreams and do what I've been able to do for the last 15 years. So thank you guys. I love you. But for now, it's back to the grind. It's back to the practice field. We got a big one on Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody.
Michael Parkhurst. He'll be speaking to the media today, and I'm sure there'll be lots more to add to that. But, it's a sad day because the time's coming for guys like this at this point in their career. It's not far off. But it's still, even knowing it's going to happen, even knowing that it could be happening any time now, it's still sad when you see these players leave the field.
Yeah, and knowing what Cap brought to this club from the absolute beginning and the ride that you've been on with him, it doesn't matter the length, it's been the quality that's been there. And it's going to be a little melancholy, but at the same time, there's work to do. And that's the thing. And that's what Michael said at the end of his statement that he released, back to work because we got a game on Wednesday. And that's where you are. It's like, we got stuff in front of us here. When we're done, and I'm done, but we're not done yet. And I think that's just how it is right now. It's like, look, yes, it is a sad day for everything that he's been able to bring to the table as a member of Atlanta United, as team captain, all the stuff off the pitch. But there's still work to do, and that's the focus here, and I don't think that Parky would want it any other way.
No, not at all. I mean, hopefully you're in a situation where things are pretty comfortable in where you're at on decision day. I mean, you're hosting a playoff game at this point. things are pretty good, and hopefully after the game on the 6th, you can do something special for Parkhurst. It's not something you can really plan for with the playoffs because you never know how that's going to play out, and you don't want that to be the story at that point. But the end of the regular season, knowing where things are going to be for the playoffs, you're not kind of on pins and needles about getting in or any of that situation. Hopefully there can be something kind of cool for Parky on that day. I'm sure the club will figure something out to honor him in the correct way. They've done a great job with that kind of stuff. But Parkhurst I really do think he will have a role to play here. You know, whether it's on the field or off, he's going to be important right now in a tough spot where you're going into games that, you know, you do still have first place in the East on the line. You can still get that, which would give you home field all the way through the Eastern Conference side of it. And if LAFC gets knocked off, and look, they haven't won in their last 5, by the way. If they get knocked off, you could be the number 2 team and the best team in the East and get that opportunity to host MLS Cup again. Those things are still there, with or without Joseph. You can't say that it's not there because Joseph's gone. You have to fight for it. Do you have to fight in a different way? Yeah, probably. You're probably going to have to look at this a little bit differently. You don't have that guy who has scored the big goal for you so many times. He's not going to be available for the next 3. So who else can be that guy, and what else do you have to do to bridge that gap? You know, we saw Pity Martinez step up in a big way, I thought, after Joseph left. We saw Brandon Vasquez rise to the occasion. We're seeing more of Tito Villalba. Those 3 guys are going to be critical to this. Darlington Nagbe driving towards the goal and creating the goal for Emerson Hyndman. Hyndman himself. It's going to be more of a collective. And against an NYC team on a small field, look, NYC's coming in banged up. Eber should be available for 30 minutes, according to Dome Tarrant. Says he's back, he's healthy, building up fitness. Maxi Morales was originally going to play 60 minutes in Dallas. He played the whole way because Anton Tinnerholm went out after a collision of heads, likely concussion, likely out for Wednesday, although that's not confirmed. Keaton Parks went out with a hamstring. He said it's not too bad, but leaving the field with a hamstring on Sunday, turning around and playing on Wednesday, that might be a big ask. And then what does Maxi Morales have in the tank? After going longer than you thought, is he going to be able to turn around and go on Wednesday? You're going to have some opportunities here. Neither team's going to be full strength. And you have a chance to go in, and we saw it last year in the postseason. You went in there, and Joseph didn't get a goal. Almiron nearly had a goal, but it was offside. And it's Eric Remedi who gets the meaningful goal for you. Is it Remedi again in this? Does it come from an unlikely person? This is going to be a really big game in the Eastern Conference, and you can't let the sadness of Parkhurst retiring, and he's not going to allow that to happen, and you can't let the sadness of Joseph not being available affect what you can do on Wednesday, which is go into Yankee Stadium and win.
Sean Vergara with a question, actually 2. Will we retire Parky's number? I know it's not usually a soccer thing, but it feels like it should in this case.
No, it's 3 years. You're not going to retire a number. It's not something you do in soccer much at all, and you don't do it over 3 years. That's not a slight. That's just not something you normally do. I think whenever the club creates the equivalent of a Ring of Honor type of situation, whatever that becomes, Parkhurst will be one of the first people on it. I think that's where it'll be. It's more about honoring the individual than the number, just because it's just not something that you do in the sport. There's very few who have that type of situation. It's incredibly rare.
And then the second question, any news on Barco? I guess his knee is better, and this is what I didn't know. But now a cast on his left arm, #inside information Monday?
Don't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Haven't heard about that, so I'm not sure. No update yet, but I'm assuming we'll get one today.
Okay. And with the remainder of the time we have here in hour number 1, a couple of folks have had some thoughts about Chris Penso, but we also have singular topics. Where do you want to go?
Let's go ahead and knock Penso out because I don't want to talk about it the rest of the show. Penso, and I've seen people, I had this conversation with Doug on Saturday. Did Penso affect the game? Did he change the result? No, I don't think he did. The yellow cards to Espinoza, don't love the first one, but it can absolutely be a yellow. The second one, I think, is easily a yellow. That's 2 yellows, you're gone. I didn't like the yellow to Merrim initially because it was the first foul of the game. It felt out of place. That created a bar that you had to give a yellow to Espinoza for delaying the throw. And I think there was another yellow given pretty soon after that you had to give because you had set the bar. I don't like referees that go to yellow cards too early in a match because they box themselves into a corner. Even with that, I don't know what in the world happened with the Matias Almeida send-off and the Wondolowski send-off. It felt like the game emotionally got away from Penso. Maybe something was said that provoked it. But look, if you've been on a touchline, if you've been in a technical area, things get said. Things get said. And if you're sending off everybody for things that get said, well, then you're not going to have teams. So in that moment, this was not Matias Almeida in a moment where he was upset about a call. He was frustrated about one of his players getting hit. He was celebrating a save by his goalkeeper, Daniel Vega. He was pumping his fist. I mentioned it on the commentary. I said that Vega was getting a standing ovation from his bench. And then Penso comes running across, and I'm guessing it's either the AR or the fourth official who said something to Penso. Penso comes off and immediately sends Almeida off. And then, on top of that, after the second goal for Atlanta, he picks out Chris Wondolowski to send him off for the first time in his career off the bench. Why are you paying so much attention to the technical area in this game?
Yeah.
Why is that such a big deal here? It shouldn't be. It definitely took away from what was a big match and what was a very intense match. There was no need to be that sensitive to comments being made from the technical area, especially in the moments that these were made. It just blew my mind that happened in this match. And if Chris Penso can't handle the intensity of that match, and look, San Jose matches are going to be intense. That's just how they play. They create that intensity. If he can't handle that, then he doesn't need to be doing any playoff matches. Because you don't want to see these little things affect. Now San Jose, the Espinoza one, fine, put that to the side. But you're going to be going into a match with Philadelphia on Wednesday that could see your playoff lives determined, and you're missing your manager and you're missing your best goal scorer for stuff that happened off the field.
Yep.
Like, that's just completely unnecessary. I think it's terrible. I think it was one of the worst things I've seen from a referee. So, no, I'm not going to go on the side of it that, Penso was fine. I completely and utterly disagree. I don't like how he went to yellows too early. That's a whatever. I don't like that he sent off a manager and a player from the bench in a moment that now will have a huge effect on San Jose's season. It felt completely out of place. So, I don't know. We'll see if anything gets said as to why those things happened. I mean, obviously it's language. And another thing real quick before we go to break. When you see on the MLS website or in the Opta report that they say why a yellow card or a red card happened, don't necessarily believe it because they're not talking to the ref during the game. Just understand that. The referee report is the report of record. That doesn't get done until after the game, after everything else is done. So when you see something like that, now in this one they said foul and abusive language, well, obviously it kind of has to be that because they're on the bench. But in situations, the Andrew Carlton one was a prime example in Hartford. He was not sent off for language, even though the USL website said it and even though the commentator said it. He was sent off for kicking the player while he was holding him. And that's what the referee signaled, and that's what the referee report said. So don't necessarily just fall on the fact of what somebody who's not there is saying or what is being reported on the MLS website, because it's not, there's no way it can be true yet because you don't have the referee report in front of you, and the fourth official's not writing that. I didn't like what Penso did. San Jose, I'm sure, is appealing everything possible. We'll see if anything changes. Let's take a quick break and get Jessica Sharman on the line. We're going to talk about Atlanta, San Jose, and Joseph's injury, and Michael Parkhurst's retirement right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Apelinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. Soccer Down Here on an Overreaction Monday. And, man, we got lots of reactions to get into today with updates this morning on Joseph Martinez and his injury, Michael Parkhurst retiring, a big match to talk about from the weekend, a big match to talk about on Wednesday. So we need some help, and we've called in a good one, Jessica Sharman, on her birthday, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, yes. Thank you for having me.
Happy birthday.
Absolutely.
Happy birthday.
Well, you know, when you love soccer as much as we do, every day feels like a birthday that you get to talk about soccer.
Wow. You're already getting down with the cliches. I like it. That's good.
Uh-huh. See,
right.
that's the thing, is that that's $1. You know, that's $1 in the kangaroo court when you start dropping cliches like that.
Yeah, seriously. Let's get into the match from Saturday, Atlanta, San Jose. We knew it would be weird. We knew it would be different because of the style San Jose brings. You know, what did you think watching this system of play that we just don't get to see very often?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the past games against San Jose, you always knew that Saturday was going to be a crazy game, and it definitely lived up to expectations. 3-1 was a very nice score. I would say it was flattering to us. There were some issues in the game. And as always, when a team goes down to 10 men, it does change the dynamic completely. And I felt like the game was incredible for those first, 30 minutes before the red card. And the red card kind of made things a little bit weird, at least until halftime. So I think, again, sometimes you get your hopes up when the team goes down to 10 men that you're going to go and obliterate them. But I actually think San Jose dealt very well with going down to 10 players and continued to press and push up really well.
Jess, going to our Twitter timeline this morning, Katie Weaver comes in and she says, "What is the weird juju that makes San Jose matches wacky? I liked how aggressive we came out, quote, the pressing team was working. The game almost turned into the Quakes' favor when they had to bunker down a man," going back to your previous point.
Yeah, it's odd with San Jose because they don't. A lot of teams, when they play Atlanta United, try and sit and play so defensively, but San Jose continue to press and attack. And like you say, when they did have to settle a bit more back, I don't think they bunkered completely. I think they continued to push players forward. Even when they went 2-1 down, they were still, determined to go forward. So I think they bunkered to an extent which helped, but they still continued to press, which I thought was brave of them. And it shows that they have confidence in their attacking play. And their goalkeeper stood on his head, like we say, towards the end to keep them in the game. But nonetheless, I did think we had some issues with not capitalizing on our chances early on.
People get worked up when we say that goalkeepers stood on their head against Atlanta. As a goalkeeper, is it fair to say that 9 saves and the quality that Daniel Vega displayed with his saves, that's standing on his head?
Oh, without a doubt. And the quality of his saves was just, it was one of those days where I really didn't think we were going to score. And you could tell how deflated he was after the second goal was conceded, because you can't do everything on your own as a goalkeeper. And his defense played well, but Atlanta had several golden opportunities, and the quality of the saves was just unbelievable. His movement off the ball and the way he judged and his footwork was impressive. And something I liked about him too was his distribution. He had that side volley down to a T, and the power of that side volley. I think you underestimate the quality of and how difficult that technique is to get the ball flat and still moving fast. So, I mean, a quality goalkeeper display there, I felt like, and he'll be really disappointed to have conceded 3 goals, and I don't think he really deserved to, honestly.
We got in the first hour. We talked about Matias Almeida and what he's been able to do in San Jose with a style completely opposite Michael Starry. And I feel like I should use the hashtag #MyBad every time we mention Michael Starry on the show. But then having players where he's been able to do some things, but then having players doing things that aren't necessarily a part of their DNA coming into the season. When you look at what Almeida has done, what strikes you about the job he's done here in this first year in San Jose?
I think that's a tough one, really. But I would say what I love about San Jose is the way they don't change their game or adapt so much against the opposition. So many times you see teams plan the way they play or adapt their style of play when they're playing against a strong team. And obviously that's a big compliment to Atlanta United that so many teams decide to park the bus or show some sort of fear. But I think the way San Jose approached the game, it really, they were neck and neck the whole game, even when they fell down to 10 players. So I think that sort of determination not to change your style and not looking so much at the opposition, but being confident enough in your players that they can play the way they play every week it is a great sentiment to how much he trusts his players.
Yeah, I was even more impressed with Matias Almeida after this one because they were bold with their play when they went down to 10. They were bold with their substitutions when they went down to 10. They still felt like they could find 3 points in it, and they stayed true to who they were. I mean, they always leave one defender free, and we saw it was Miles Robinson for a large portion of the first half. The only thing that changed with the red card was that they left 2 free, and it made it a lot easier for Atlanta to get forward. But once they came into those zones and players were picked up, San Jose played the same way, and then they still looked to break, and they created a few chances with 10.
Exactly. They took that risk because they were confident enough that the defenders could recover and play well. And that's what's fascinating. So many times when teams go down to 10 players, they park the bus, particularly when they're in a drawing position. They're in a position to tie the game there and then. So a lot of teams would have just parked the bus and be happy to leave with 1 point, particularly against a team like Atlanta United, where you're playing away from home. You would think that you'd take a point, but they weren't content with that. And that was exciting. And it didn't ruin the game having a sending off, which so many times it does. And I mean, it was a great game to watch. Again, a little bit frustrating from Atlanta United's standpoint. You would think that maybe they would have capitalized on a couple of chances. Heineman's sticks to mind, but he did. Like I tweeted the minute he missed that shot, I was like, he's going to make me eat my words, and he did. So I was happy for Emerson there.
And now Atlanta United's having to go to New York City. Won't have Joseph presumably for the next couple of weeks throughout the remainder of the regular season. How are you viewing Atlanta United going into New York, playing on a pitch that is a 15% discount than the rest of MLS?
Yeah, I mean, I can't stand. I'm kind of glad we're going to be busy so we don't have to watch the game in full, because watching a game on that field it does hurt your head a little bit. The hardest thing is with set plays and corners. Honestly, Atlanta United are going to need to be practicing on a shorter field with set plays and corners, because it does make such a difference with the narrowness of the field, because so many times, particularly a team that does like to get the ball into wide positions and put those cutbacks in, you've got such a less distance to do so. So it is a tough team to go and play. I'm sure Atlanta United are probably doing some small-sided stuff, working on tighter areas, tighter zones. It's a tough team to go and play. They'll have been disappointed with their result last night, so it might be a good time to go play them. But without Joseph, look, Joseph's an incredible player. There's no going about, like, no saying otherwise. But I think we have got the quality in our squad to do well without him. You saw a positive response when Joseph went off on the stretcher. You could tell those players were playing for him, and it was good to see 2 scorers on the score sheet, three on Saturday, other than Joseph, which shows we do have goals in other places. I would be more concerned if we hadn't scored any more goals and you're worried where those goals are coming from. But fortunately, we have players on the field still that do have an eye for net.
So no Joseph in the starting lineup. Who do you think steps in?
I would like to see Tito Villalba. I don't know how likely it is. Frank has said some nice words about him lately. I think he deserves some time. When he came on, he did do really well, closing down the ball, putting in some good cuts. He's not, a striker per se, but maybe you switch things up a little bit. Or I guess Brandon Vazquez, who has put in a couple of good shifts. He's not a Joseph Martinez, but he's played well. And what's good is there are different options for Atlanta United.
When you look at Michael Parkhurst, that was the other kind of breaking news that happened this morning, where Parkey has decided that at the end of the season he's gonna hang him up. We've had folks chiming in about Cap this morning, and their favorite memory seems to be coming across the board. And the one that sticks out for a lot of folks is his tackle that led to the goal in MLS Cup. Do you have a favorite Michael Parkhurst memory?
I think seeing him lift the cup after how much it meant to him, to have struggled in so many MLS Cup finals, to finally lift the cup for Atlanta United, it's a beautiful thing, and you could see how much it meant for Michael Parkhurst. I think one thing to remember is he's always going to be the first club captain this season, despite not playing. I think it's been a real honor to watch him lead from the sideline and see how much he still means to all the players. You look at how he still lifted, I can't remember which trophy it was off the top of my head still, but
Open
they wanted
Cup.
him. Yep, they wanted him to still lift the Open Cup. I think that's a real testament to how much of a captain he still is. You talk about having an on-field captain, but you also still have a club captain. And no matter who wears the armband on the field, they still view Michael Parkhurst as the captain. So I think this season, as much as it's been sad not to see Parky on the field, he's a great role model. He's a great leader and an inspiration to those younger players coming up behind him. I think it's been brilliant to watch that he still has that respect and guidance, even from a bench position. And timing's right for him. I think he's making the right decision. It must be frustrating as a player that's always really played and started to suddenly not have those minutes in him. And it's the right thing to do, rather than being frustrated and, kind of sinking further down the line. So I think Parky's making a good choice. And like I say, he's going to be a hero forever in the club and will always be that first captain.
I'll go back to 2017 in the playoff match with Columbus, where Parkhurst was injured late in the season, couldn't start that playoff game, comes off the bench in the 67th minute and keeps it alive with a save off the line where he's scrambling back on almost one leg and kind of hooks it wide of the goal. It just shows that never say die attitude with him. And he's a player that I don't think ever truly got his due in the American soccer universe, because he's not the fastest, he's not the tallest, he's not the most athletic, but he's just the consummate leader and center back that I think you want in your team, and he makes everyone else around him better.
Exactly, and I think Mars Robinson's probably learned a lot from him on practice and on the field. And what I love about Parkhurst is he is really the epitome of, you can't judge a book by its cover. I think in American sports, a lot of times people want the tallest player, the quickest player, the strongest player. There's a huge emphasis on physicality in American sports. At least that's what I found adjusting from playing in England to playing the college game. It was a lot more about your speed, your fitness, your agility. And yes, those are important traits, but your soccer IQ, it is the most superior thing, I think, in soccer. And that's what I love about the game. The sport as a whole is you can get away sometimes with not being the quickest, not being the strongest, because if your soccer IQ and your understanding and reading of the game is high enough, you make up for those attributes in other ways. And I think Parkhurst is the epitome of that. He may not be the quickest, and yes, maybe he did struggle in the wing back position when he tried to play it, but at the same time, you watched his reading of his game, you watched his movement off the ball, and it just showed that he is such a smart player, and that's something that everyone can learn from.
And one of our other listeners, Shiva, comes in and says it's going to be a bittersweet year. We'll lose some players, and Parky's the first one that's been announced. It's never going to be easy to say goodbye, especially because of the connection this club has built between the fans and the players.
Yeah,
what do you think, Jess?
It's a really tough one. You look at Miguel Almiron, and how people still follow him across the pond, and he's the first player that left. And it does hurt you when a player leaves, particularly when they leave for different reasons or other things. But it's something you have to get used to as a club, and that's what soccer clubs are about. It's very rare these days that you have a player that stays with you for 10, 15 years. It's more turnaround than that, and it's something we have to get used to. But it's a real compliment to Michael Parkhurst, because I do feel like he did create such a strong bond with the fans. And I think the Atlanta United fan base is also a very unique one in that these players are really idolized, and they do have this unique bond that I've never experienced in all my years of soccer supporting. But like I said, it's something we're going to have to get used to. Turnover is high. I'm sure there will be some other players that may leave in the near future, but you just hope that the next Michael Parkhurst comes in, or and you want the best for your players, and you have to realize that, for instance, if someone like Miles Robinson in the future attracts attention from a strong European club, it's going to hurt to let someone go. He did come up really through our ranks, being picked from the draft, but you have to want the best for those players, and you have to see it as a compliment to the club too. When it's always exciting on, channels when you listen and they talk about Miguel Almiron coming from Atlanta United. It's a very special thing to be a club that's giving players an opportunity to do bigger and better things.
So let's go back to the challenge that Wednesday provides. We're seeing now reports out of training that Ezequiel Barco is training. He has a wrap on his left hand that was alluded to earlier, and I didn't know anything about his hand being injured, but you're now getting Barco back in. We saw in Orlando Barco and Pitti play together up top.
Yeah.
Do you think we see something like that at Yankee Stadium?
You just have to, with Barco, I wonder whether he is going to start. He's been out a little while. It does take time to get match fitness. Potentially with Joseph out, you have to rush Barco in a little bit quicker. If that's the case, I think there's potential for it. I do think they linked up nicely and they played well together. But I'm not sure if Barco starts, although if it is a hand injury, you wonder how much that's taken out of him and whether he's still been doing all the cardio to stay in match fitness. I think New York City will be certainly hoping that Barco doesn't start.
When you look at New York City, obviously there are issues there with them. We talked about Tinnerholm possibly with concussion issues, Parks with a hamstring, Eber with with his injury, maybe available to a little bit. And I know that we could go into concussion protocol, and that would be an entirely other segment as well. But the challenges that you see from NYCFC, even as they may be shorthanded.
Yeah, absolutely. So things do even themselves up. And also, they obviously have that 1 day less rest. Atlanta is traveling, but, it's not the longest travel. I think they'll be okay with that. So that extra day of rest may do Atlanta United some favors. And I'm pretty sure that the concussion, he won't be playing. I think that was quite ridiculous to watch, honestly. So with them short in players and missing some starters, I think it evens things up a little bit, because obviously Joseph is going to be a huge loss.
What do you think about the proposals going forward about a temporary substitution in these situations? Because if you didn't see it in the New York City-Dallas match yesterday, it was a nasty collision with Brandon Cervania and Anton Tinnerholm. Tinnerholm had his arm up after hitting the ground. It looked really bad for him. Long delay as both were checked out. Both players came back into the match, and then both players had to leave the match because they couldn't continue. 5 minutes is not enough time for them to be truly checked out.
No. They have blood substitutions in rugby where, if someone gets a really bad gash or something, they can go off, get stitched up, and come back in, and it works effectively. With concussions now, as more research is being done, I'm not going to lie, when I was growing up, there's plenty of times when I got hit in the head, and I'm pretty sure I played, and maybe I shouldn't. We weren't as educated.
Nobody knew.
But things have changed now. You realize the severity of head injuries, and it's quite terrifying, honestly. And I don't think there's anything wrong with making a change with a temporary substitution, because I think what happens now is players don't want to come off. I speak for myself as a player. You don't want to come off the field at any point. You don't want to hear the word concussion, because it comes with a lot of a long protocol once you've been diagnosed with one. You're going to have to miss several games. You're going to have to go through a vigorous reinstatement program where you have to prove you can do a certain number of things, testing. So it's a pain for players, and they don't want to risk it. But if you really have a concussion, then you need to have that stigma taken away about telling someone that you're not feeling right. Right now, players don't want to do it, because as soon as you say, "Oh, I've got a headache," you're coming off the field, because they don't have enough time to check you, and then you're done for the day. I think a temporary substitution would be far better, because a player's more likely to be like, you know what, maybe I'm not feeling that great. Maybe I should get checked out. If I'm good, I can come back on the field.
Right.
And at the same time, from a coach's point of view, let's be honest, coaches want their strongest players out on the pitch. They don't want to take off a player if they've got a head hurt. It will be better for them, because they're more willing to pull them for 10 minutes of checkups, whatever it takes, but knowing that if it comes back clear, they can put them back in. So I think it would be a great idea, honestly. I used to, before I really understood, and I had one bad concussion in college, and I realized quite the severity of what it is. And people are risking their lives out there. And I was disappointed that the players were allowed to go back in after watching it back. I think they were pretty obviously showing signs of serious concussions. And, these rushed, hash decisions and just asking a player how they're feeling isn't an accurate way to make a diagnosis.
No, Tinnerholm for me looked in a really bad way. I mean, the arm being extended when he's on the ground in that way, that was what really worried me when it came to him. Cervania was a little bit harder to tell, but both of them, I really think FIFA, IFAB, leagues, and I hope MLS, and I know USL Championship has talked about kind of pioneering this. I hope that leagues here can take the lead. There are some technologies that can help, I think, with the checks. The Atlanta Hawks use it. I think Georgia Tech uses it as well. There are some things that are being developed that can help with a more definitive check in the protocol side. Definitely take advantage of every bit of technology you can. But the temporary substitution, it just takes the pressure out of the player having to admit that they have a problem and the coach not wanting to burn a substitution early. If they are forced into the concussion protocol because of a situation and use independent doctors, set a time limit, whatever you have to do, but give a time where they can be off the field and get checked, and the team doesn't have to play shorthanded, because when these players go back on, that's when you're at the greatest risk. If they go back on and have another head injury, you're talking about potentially catastrophic damage.
Yeah,
and
trust me,
those are the things that can happen.
We were made to watch a video in college of a football player that had 2 hits within an hour, and now can't walk, can't barely talk, and is going through a serious brain injury. And it does wake you up to it, and you have to be 100% sure that a player, when they re-enter that field, isn't going through the swelling phase of their brain already. Right. Because and that's why I think yesterday was so bad, because you could tell that they weren't okay. And so it's one of those things where we need to minimize as many risks of this as possible. American football obviously has had such news about head injuries, and I think soccer needs to realize that just because maybe it's not published as much about the risk of head injuries in the game, you don't have a helmet, you are going head-to-head collisions, there is all sorts of whiplash going on when you hit the ground, and it's not, there shouldn't be a stigma against head injuries. I think sometimes people are wusses if they they admit that they've hurt their head, stuff like that. And that sort of stigma needs to go away because it's very dangerous.
And that's the point, Jess, is that folks have to put their egos aside in all of this because there's a larger issue in play, and it's personal health. And so first and foremost, you got to put all this stuff aside and go, all right, let's focus on the individual here and not focus on the fact that there's a game that's being interrupted. You got to put all of that stuff aside and focus on the bigger picture.
Yeah, absolutely. As much as we talk about our teams being our lives, you know, our life is far more important. And as a fan, I would take, you know, my players using all 3 substitutions in 5 minutes and being okay over, you know, winning a game.
Yeah, easily the case. All right, are y'all going to make an announcement or do I have to do it?
Yeah, go for it.
No, it's not my announcement. Why don't you do it, John, since you're going to be there on Wednesday?
Well, no, but it's Jess's birthday, so we'll let her do it.
Okay, there you go.
All right, well, John and I will be pairing up on, well, Action at the Fraction, are we going to call it?
No, don't do that. No.
Jason, you're not there. I'm sorry.
Not cool.
There'll be some Action at the Fraction with the John and Jess Dream Team coming on Wednesday, 7:30 ESPN Plus. So you're going to need your split screens out if you want to listen to both of us.
Yeah, get the split screen, get the split earbuds. So you've got Mike and I in one ear from Yankee Stadium and John and Jess in the other ear from Kennesaw State. I'm not going to say it.
There you go. Well, but you're also burying another lead. Is that she's doing the daily double with us too?
Well, it's not quite as big of a lead, but yes.
Well, if anyone wants to come out to Brewhouse tonight for soccer over there, I'll be celebrating my birthday too. There will be cake. Who doesn't love cake and listening to all of us talk about European soccer?
Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about with everything that happened around Europe and South America and Mexico, and we'll get into MLS and we'll get into all of it because it's a 2-hour soccer extravaganza at the Brewhouse, 6 to 8 today. Come out, check out the new menu, get some grub, get a drink. It'll be a lot of fun. Hang out with us, and say happy birthday to Jess.
That's the most important part.
It is. That's why I saved it for the last. Yes. All right. Thanks, Jess. We'll talk to you in a little bit.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Let's take a quick break and get back into the Twitter timeline on an Overreaction Monday right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolensky of Apolensky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, September 23rd. It's an overreaction Monday. Man, the hits just keep on coming. Stuff feels like every segment is popping up about Atlanta United today. So we'll get into all that. We'll get into your Twitter timeline, all your questions, comments, all of that in just a bit. Let's run through the results from the weekend very quickly because the table is a very important thing at this point in the season. After Atlanta and San Jose kicked off the weekend with madness, things got kind of quiet for a little while. Vancouver and Columbus. Columbus gave up the lead, which is actually kind of important with how other results fell. Columbus, if they had held on to the win, would be even with Montreal in 9th place, 4 points out of the final spot with 2 games to play. They would have still had a chance. They still actually do have a chance, technically, mathematically, but they gave up a goal very late to Vancouver. They're on 35 points. They have to win out and get every crazy scenario that could possibly happen for them to get into the postseason. They blew their chance. Chicago maybe blew their chance. Maybe Chicago blew their chance. They're not dead yet, but they had an opportunity. They can't find a goal in Cincinnati. Why in the world do they sub out Nico Gaetan in the 58th minute when they're trying to find a goal? Chicago 2-2-2 in their last 6 when they've had an opportunity to get into that final spot. The reason why is New England is 1-2-5 in their last 8. That's why these teams have an opportunity. They couldn't get the win at home. It's a scoreless draw at Gillette. Both teams kind of cancel each other out, but RSL started 8 reserves. And New England could not get the win. 1-2-5 in their last 8. The door's still open. Could Orlando take advantage? No, they couldn't. They're in Houston. They get a lead from Dom Dwyer, the rare Dom Dwyer goal of 2019. But then they blow it in the 70th and 73rd minute with 2 goals. Orlando's 0-3-3 in their last 6. Who wants to make the playoffs? Nobody.
Nobody.
Sporting Kansas City and Colorado out west. Kansas City's broken. Unplug it, plug it back in, see what happens. They took a 2-0 lead. They got a red card. Then they lost 3-2 to the Rapids, who are still breathing in the playoff race, but barely. It's probably done for the Rapids. The Galaxy and Montreal, this is another one that could have taken advantage of New England. Montreal hasn't taken advantage of much right now. They rested a bunch of people because they have the second leg of the Canadian Championship coming up. They still made a game of it because the Galaxy are the Galaxy. Zlatan scored the opener. Impact equalized. Then Zlatan assisted on the winner. Montreal 2-10-1 in their last 13. And they're still only 4 points out of the playoffs. Just a couple wins. Just a couple of them, and they'd be in great spot. LAFC and Toronto, that closed us out on Saturday night. LAFC hasn't won in 5 now. It took a late penalty for them to get a point. Toronto, Tsubasa Endo gets the opener. Vela with a penalty very late gets the point. And Matt Doyle had a great point in his column that came out this morning. Since Omar Gonzalez came to Toronto, when he started, they're 6-1-5. They have proven to be a difficult team to beat. Now, 6 wins out of 12, not the greatest, but only 1 loss out of 12. That shows you what Omar Gonzalez has brought to the table. Toronto's undefeated in their last 8 right now, and they're sitting in a decent spot. Portland and Minnesota opened the schedule up on Sunday. Portland cannot buy a goal. They cannot buy a freaking goal at this point. Minnesota gets the clean sheet. It's a scoreless draw. In the last 2 years, Minnesota was one of the worst defensive teams this league had ever seen. They had 7 clean sheets in 2 seasons. They've got 10 this year. Ike Opara, Osvaldo Alonso, Vito Minone, all a big part of changing that for the Loons. Dallas NYC, we've talked about the 1-1 draw. We've talked about the injuries coming out of it. It's a goal in the first minute for NYC, but they kind of ran out of gas after about 20 minutes. Ryan Hollingshead had the winner on his right foot in stoppage time, inside the 6, and he put it over the bar. Mm-hmm. Ryan Hollingshead, dude, really, you could have helped Atlanta out. It would have been nice, but no. It's a point for Dallas at home against NYC. They should have had more. Red Bulls at home took advantage of Philadelphia. The Union looked human, losing 2-0. Andre Blake with just an inexplicable mistake leads to the opener. As Philly's pushing forward, trying to find an equalizer, they get beat in stoppage time for goal number 2. Philly could not get anything on Luis Robles and the Red Bulls defense, and now they've won back-to-back games. D.C. took advantage of a tired Seattle team, a Nico Lodero-less Seattle team, and D.C. won 2-0 in the finale of the weekend. D.C. have won 3 straight, all by clean sheet, and right now they are in the number 4 spot in the Eastern Conference. Here's your table. New York City, 58 points. Atlanta, 54. Philadelphia, 52. All have played 31 matches. D.C. is in the 4 spot to host a home playoff match. They're on 48 through 32 matches. Red Bulls are on 47 through 32. They play next. Oof. Toronto's in 6th, 46 points through 32. They've still got a shot to host the first round of the playoffs. New England is not in the playoffs yet, in the 7th spot. 41 points through 31 matches. The teams chasing them have all played one more match. Chicago's 3 points back. They only have 2 matches left. Montreal, 4 points back, 2 matches left. Orlando, 5 points back, 2 matches left. Columbus, it's always Orlando that gets Gwen going. Columbus, 6 points back, 2 matches left. They have to win out. Orlando has to win out. Montreal has to win out. Chicago pretty much needs to win out. Orlando, Chicago play each other on decision day. The Eastern Conference appears to be the 7 that are in are the 7, but 3 teams still have a shot to host that first playoff match, which is really important. Out West, LAFC, 65 points, 31 matches. They've got 3 left. The max they can get to is 74. That would be a new record in terms of best season ever, but they haven't won in 5. Seattle, 50 points, 32 matches. Minnesota has a game in hand on Seattle. They're 1 point back on 49. LA Galaxy right now are in the final home playoff spot, 48 points, 31 matches played. RSL, 47 points, 31 matches played. Dallas has played one more game than these teams. They're on 32 matches played, 45 points. San Jose, 44 points. They're in the final spot right now. Portland, same number of points, but they're a step back, and it goes all the way down because they have the same record, 13, 13, and 5. They have the same goal differential, +1. But San Jose has scored 5 more goals than Portland right now. That's why they are ahead of the Timbers, and they're in the playoff spot. Portland's not. Colorado's 5 points back, but they have 2 matches left. Houston they have 3 matches left, so they're not out of it yet. They're on 37 points. They're 7 points back. Sporting Kansas City, technically not out of it yet. They're on 37 points. They have 3 matches left. But it's looking like it's 8 for 7 spots out west. And who hosts matches? I have no idea. Ask me next week. What stood out to you, John, in all of that chaos?
Here's your trivia question for the morning. Let's see if you can answer.
Okay.
Courtesy of our friends at Soccer American. You might have already seen this, so this could be
I did.
A complete sell job. But of the 7 teams that have a chance to get into the playoffs, Eastern Conference, New England, Chicago, Montreal, Orlando, Western Conference, FC Dallas, San Jose, and Portland, those 7 teams have 1 win in their last 21 matches combined. New England winless in their last 4. Orlando winless in their last 6. Who has the win?
Well, I know who has the win, but it's
Chicago has the win.
Yeah, that's not a shock. Chicago's had a weaker schedule too. The fact is, no, it's all of them. It's not about Chicago. It's New England, Chicago, Montreal, Orlando, Dallas, San Jose, Portland. In their last 3 matches each, there's only 1 win.
Oof.
It's not the way it was set up. It's a little hard to hear if you don't see the breakdown because it's their last 3 matches. New England lost tie. Chicago tie went tie, so they're undefeated in their last 3. Montreal, 3 losses. Orlando, 2 draws and a loss. Dallas, 2 draws and a loss. San Jose, 3 losses. Portland, 2 losses and a draw, and all at home. It's teams are beating each other up because, I mean, you're seeing a lot of these teams play one another. Chicago, I feel like, had the best schedule to take advantage of this. If they had won in Cincinnati, where they should have, they'd be 1 point back. It's Chicago. Montreal had Cincinnati come to town. They couldn't win that. That's another one that they lost to Cincinnati. They could be on 40 points. They could be 1 point back. Orlando had the lead in Houston, gave it up. Columbus has had opportunities, and they've given up results. You're at a point where, you know, the Red Bulls, before they got a couple wins in a row, they were in a tough spot. You take those out of it, they're right there with New England. So they're the only ones that were in this type of situation that have changed where they're at. The rest of them are all kind of piddling away, and you're going to see these teams play each other a lot over the next few days. So Wednesday, we know about Atlanta and NYC. Minnesota hosts Sporting Kansas City. I believe a win for Minnesota guarantees them a spot and would end it for Kansas City. Kansas City has to win out and look for a lot of help. RSL and LA Galaxy Wednesday night is a really interesting one because right now they're on either side of that home playoff game. That one will go a long way to deciding what happens out west. LAFC hosts Houston. LAFC should break their 5-match winless streak, but who knows? New England has to go to Portland Wednesday night. That's a really difficult trip, but Portland can't score a goal right now. And then maybe the biggest one is San Jose and Philadelphia. Because Philadelphia, if Atlanta loses at Yankee Stadium, Philadelphia can jump them back into second if they can go across the country and get a win. If San Jose loses and Portland wins, then they're out of the playoffs right now. But San Jose can move all the way up to that 5 spot with the Galaxy and RSL playing one another. I mean, it's the amount of movement that we could see at the end of the day on Wednesday is crazy.
Yep. And so let's see my very quick soundbite analysis of the weekend. And I'll burn through them. Columbus, yikes. Chicago, yeesh. New England RSL, think you washed each other out. Watching Houston and Orlando, yeah. Houston at home, just completely different than Houston on the road. Sporting Kansas City also gets an especially after the red card. Galaxy, just when you put dirt on them, you end up playing at Montreal. Zlatan gets 1-1. Impact, LAFC and Toronto. LAFC, I still look at their depth down the line because now they don't have Adama Diomande for however long he's going to be out. So the depth will be tested for LAFC, still winless in their last 5. Portland and Minnesota, it just looked like Portland was a labor of Sisyphus trying to get something done against Minnesota in that goalless draw. We talked about Dallas and NYCFC on a bunch of different levels. Red Bulls still had a lot of empty seats in the upper level going up against Philadelphia. And yeah, they did look human. Yes,
lots
it is
of construction. Lots of construction. Maybe more construction than they had planned originally.
Yes, and then DC United in Seattle. Keith Costigan was talking to Steve Zakuani late in the match after they were down 2-0. He asked Zakuani if he was concerned about the postseason. Zakuani said, no, I disagree.
No, I disagree?
Yeah, I just disagree about I disagree. Zakuani's not worried about Seattle in the postseason. I am. I'm still the defense to me, ever since Chad Marshall left, still hasn't been the same, and they're still trying to find goals on the road. So I'm concerned about Seattle in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by anybody out west just yet, and we'll see how things finish up with their final 2 and 3 matches. Let's take our final break, come back and finish up with all of the reactions and thoughts to a crazy day in the Atlanta soccer universe right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Final segment. Soccer Down here, September 23rd. Overreaction Monday after Atlanta's 3-1 win over San Jose. But this is probably the least we've talked about a win in show history because this morning it comes out, and we'll get some further news here in a bit when Frank DeBoer speaks to the media. But Joseph Martinez likely out for weeks, not months. Could be back for the postseason after the knee injury suffered against San Jose in the second half. Michael Parkhurst announced his retirement this morning after the season concludes. And we're getting word that Ezequiel Barco is training with the first team today, while Julian Gressel is not. I think Gressel is going to be available to media as well, so we'll get an update on that. It could just be a rest situation because he's played a lot of minutes as of late. He was checked for a knee injury during the match. He did finish the match, but that happened in the first half where he was checked after an awkward kind of landing. It looked really strange in the moment. It looked like he was bumped, if I remember correctly, and he was off balance, and he was trying to regain his balance and kind of planted weird on his leg. It was really awkward, and I was really concerned about it, but he gutted it out and finished the match. We'll see if that's the issue, if it's just fatigue. There's a lot of things happening at the moment.
All right, Daniel Price. I saved this one, his MLS discussion about the league in general and the other matches.
Okay.
Apparently, he has come back from his surgery and has bid us all good night, so he'll have to listen to this answer after he's recovered. NYCFC looked gassed after the match in Dallas, which Dallas should have won. Surprised Elfath didn't call the obvious penalty and didn't even look at the handball. Both Red Bulls and Dallas doing us a favor, however, keeping the East open for us. Also, congrats to Jess.
Yes. All of the above. Yeah, I mean, the Red Bulls beating Philadelphia. Look, the Red Bulls have come back from the dead because they looked dead. They looked very dead. They have found a way to bounce back, and Dallas should have gotten 3 points last night. They absolutely should have gotten 3 points, and they were unable to do so. But you look at the form for some of these teams as of late. You know, we talked about it with the teams that are fighting to get in, but the Red Bulls had lost 3 straight before winning 2 in a row. They found a way to do it where others haven't. You know, Seattle's only won 1 of their last 4. They've got 1 draw. They've got 2 losses in that mix. San Jose's lost 3 in a row. Kansas City's lost 3 in a row. Toronto, while they're unbeaten in 8, they have 2 wins in their last 5. You know, there's points to be had at the moment. And it's funny looking at all these draws around the league and teams that can't quite find the win, and then you look at Atlanta with 6 wins out of their last 8, and if you go further back than that, 8 out of their last 11, and it's a win or a loss. There's only been 3 draws for Atlanta this year. The last one was back on July 7th against the Red Bulls. Before that, you're going back to games 2 and 3 of the season. It's a win or it's a loss. Atlanta is not messing around with these one-pointers.
Nathan Pugh, what a bizarre ending in Atlanta. Red Bulls do what Red Bulls do. LAFC bailed out. NYCFC fail and keep it interesting. Orlando stinks. Portland and DC still an enigma. These one-off playoff matches are going to be madness, except for Orlando. On Party Action Monday.
I'm with Glenn Crooks. I don't like these one-off playoff matches at all. I think
I don't either.
It just invites too much chaos into something that should be determining who the best team of the season is. And to put it down to one game, I do not like that at all. I think that's a huge mistake by MLS, and I hope they revisit it in the future with the playoff format, because I don't like seeing the season come down to just one game. The craziness at the end with Atlanta San Jose was, I can't think of anything like it over as an extended period of time. The building was louder than I've ever heard it at the end as well. It was nuts. And to get, 83, 84th minute, those 2 saves from Vega, to get Almeida sent off, to get, Atlanta coping with Joseph out, getting chances, and then finally getting the breakthrough. It was so crazy in that building. And then to get a 3rd goal and Pitti getting one to put it away. It was a blast. I mean, it's one of those that, as an announcer, you're exhausted at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. And that's those are games that you like, you hope, but those are the ones that you're blown up for hours after the fact, and you go to bed and you try to get a good night's sleep, and you do not drift at all. You just absolutely crash. Natasha,
I didn't make it through the 10:30 games Saturday night.
No.
I was done.
Yep, I did. And I was up, actually. I think I finished watching the early parts of the semifinals in Australian rules football. Natasha wanted to share her appreciation for soccer down here and over there, educating her on the international game. My friends have an exchange student from Argentina living with them, and she was thrilled to speak with an American who could talk about Boca, River, and Independiente.
Cool. There's going to be a lot to talk about with Boca and River here coming up. Very, very shortly, October 1st, we get the first leg of the Copa Libertadores semifinals. And if you haven't seen, there were a number of River Barra Brava leaders who were arrested very recently for, I think, a variety of charges. And it's no surprise that it happens this soon before the next Super Classico, Insanity, Mad Max, Thunderdome, Armageddon, all the things.
Yes. Yes.
It's no surprise that it happens here. So stay tuned, because you've got 2 games in a month in October between those 2. Each team is planning on hosting one of those, and we'll see how that goes, because it didn't happen last time. Hopefully we don't get the stupidity that we got last time. Hopefully we get the quality, the passion, the intensity that we got on the field, but not the stupidity off of it. And these games get played and come to a good conclusion, because Boca's playing great in league play right now. They're leading the Superliga in Argentina. River, it feels like River is preparing for the Boca match more than league play at the moment. It feels like their focus is the Libertadores, so they're going to have to get something out of it, or even with all the trophies Marcelo Gallardo has won, he's going to get questioned about it, because that's the nature of the game in Argentina. So there will be plenty more to talk about, Natasha, with River and Boca and the rest of all the goings-on in Argentina. We really appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Shiva, can I give a shout-out to the 17s? College football weekend, and we still packed the house, and we were loud when it mattered.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird emotional match, because, I mean, the match is just chaos, so the flow is very different, and I think that took a little bit of getting used to. The Joseph injury takes the air out of the building, obviously, and that's completely understandable. But the intensity of the crowd in the final 10-15 minutes was, honestly, I just don't have a lot of comparison for it. I mean, it felt like the end of the Open Cup final. It felt like MLS Cup. It was that kind of game because it was a game that was on the precipice there, and the crowd helped push it over. It was great to see and great to hear. So, yeah, those are moments where I've already put that whole thing about college football off to the side because that was the big conversation coming into the Saturday game with Orlando in 2017, the first one at the Benz. It's like, oh, it's a full stadium. Why are they doing the full stadium on a college football Saturday? They're never going to fill it. It's not going to be full. Yeah, it was, and it was great.
Bet.
So it's past that. I think people have adjusted to, all right, Georgia plays Notre Dame that night. Cool. I'm going to get home after the game, after the Atlanta match, and watch Georgia. All right, whatever my other teams are, if I'm following it from my phone in the stands, all right, whatever it takes. That's where the hardcore fans are at this point. So it's not that, and I think that's the difference in Atlanta, is that it's not that you're only drawing from a soccer community that didn't follow college football and baseball with the Braves doing what they're doing, and we'll see it with the Hawks coming up, and we see it on Sundays with the Falcons. Atlanta United has become part of that conversation alongside everybody else, not in a separate bubble that you're only getting the soccer people there, and other people are like, oh, well, yeah, I'm not going to go watch the soccer team that I don't really, truly live and die with. That's not happening here. It's just part of the sports conversation, and you pick and choose, and you figure out, like, all right, the Braves are playing, cool, I'm going to keep up with it, but I'm going to be at the Atlanta game. And that's not to say that, you don't get fans who are hardcore Atlanta United fans who are big Braves fans too, or big college football fans, and they're at their game that weekend, but they're listening to us on 92.9 The Game, or they're following along on their phones, and they're still engaged with what's happening. That's great too. It's not an either-or situation that, if they're not there, that's not good. No, Atlanta United's just part of the sporting conversation here, and nothing's going to detract from that anymore.
Let's see. Oh, Kefsey, am I the only one who thinks Kai Kamara deserves an and one on his bicycle kick goal?
Yeah, Kai Kamara's had some goals like that you're just like, what? Really? Kai? And yeah, he does it. That's going to be one of the goals of the week nominees. But if Joseph doesn't win goal of the week for the second goal in Cincinnati and maybe the first goal second place, there's something wrong.
Jarrett chimed in this morning. He says, we deserve the stupidity that an Atlanta-San Jose Cup final would bring.
Oh, geez. I can't handle that. I would need an oxygen tank and maybe a bottle of rum in the booth to try to manage that match.
Eichmann has a starting 11, and we'll save that one for tomorrow. Basically, it's based on if Barco can go and Gressel and things like that. So we'll save that starting 11 for tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get more word from Frank DeBoer here in a bit. So if Barco can go, it absolutely changes the possibilities. You bring that Orlando Open Cup semifinal type of setup back into the mix. If he can't, I think Brandon Vasquez is the obvious replacement, but we'll know more here in a bit.
Sean Vergara also asks, is it just the way things have always been, or is it an MLS thing when it comes to information coming out? Slow to find out about injury and contract news.
Well, it's an MLS thing on the contract side. The injury stuff, you don't have the NFL scenarios where you have to report injuries, and if you don't, you get yelled at and fined and whatever, and then you get teams that just play with it all season long and the usual nonsense. You don't have that stuff, so teams are going to keep it close to the vest. They don't want injury news to get out if they can help it, because then the opponent doesn't know what they're going to face. I mean, it's all about giving every advantage possible, especially at this stage of the season. So, that's just the nature of it. Until MLS sets up a policy where you have to report injuries by a certain day or you're fined or whatever, this is what you're going to get. And that's what it should be. I mean, teams should take advantage of that if they can. Like, you would want that for your club. The contract stuff, I really think MLS can benefit itself by making this stuff more public. Just at least the basics of lengths of contracts and options and those things, so these discussions can be had, because I think it generates more media conversation. Injuries are a little bit different. The contract stuff, to me, you get more conversation happening, and that's a good thing for the league, and you get more media coverage because you see it with the NBA, you see it with other sports. That stuff creates a lot of content for a lot of media partners.
Couple of thoughts from the Soccer for Good OG, Jill Robbins, this morning. She says she just got back from the vet for her pup's surgery, missed hour number 1, but she thought that with herself, Reed Joseph, given the last injury before the Open Cup match in Orlando, it'll take a lot to keep a street kid from Valencia, Venezuela off the pitch.
Yeah, and that's another key to it. I mean, if it's weeks, you're going to be like holding him back to not play on decision day. And if there's any question about it, you'd like to not have him play on decision day. If there's any concern, I don't see a scenario unless it is very serious that he does not play in a playoff match. I think if he can be out there, he will play. At a minimum, he will be available off the bench, but I think he plays. I just don't think that if there is any question if he can do it, that he doesn't do it in the postseason. That's just who Joseph Martinez is.
And then she says she took the Rents to the match on Saturday. It was her dad's first pro soccer match, and you know what? The old curmudgeon had fun and admitted it. Thank you, nice. Atlanta team, stadium fans, trains, city, etc., for putting on your best face and winning over even the most cynical. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
See, there you go. That's what happens when you go to an Atlanta United match. You get infected.
Michael Valverde says, massive respect, Cap. You'll always be the foundation from which Atlanta United's built success. We're also grateful for your leadership and tenacity on and off the field. Hope you'll stay with the club somehow. Directed at MF Parkhurst on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll see what the future holds for Parkhurst, but he's still got a lot to do in the present as well.
And a couple from Eichmann before we go. Orlando just keeps hitting hashtag the wall every season about right now. He thought that was funny.
That's a good one. I like it.
And then he finishes his Overreaction Monday thoughts with the week that was. Braves clinch, United clinch, Falcons, parenthesis, but, close parenthesis, clinch.
Oy. Yeah. Not so good for the Falcons. Great for the Braves. Great to see the celebrations there. Going back to the Orlando thing, I'm looking at their list of seasons and numbers right now. So 2015, they finished 7th in the East. They had 44 points. They got 3 points worse in 2016. They fell back a spot in the East. 2017, they fell back 2 spots to 10th. They lost 2 more points. 2018, they lost 11 points, and they fell down to 11th, 22nd overall in the league. 2019, they're not going to be as bad as they were in 2018. They've reversed that part at least. They're on 36 points. They have 2 matches left. They have to get 4 points to get past where they were in 2017. Like, they're better. I mean, I think they're a better team this year. The goals against number is the biggest thing. I mean, it was 74 last year. Cincinnati's tied that. They haven't broken it yet because they didn't give up a goal in the weekend. You went from 74 goals allowed to 46. That's huge strides. That's big improvement. They're probably going to have the best defense that they've ever had in club history. But only 41 goals to show for it. And they've had 2017, they only scored 39. 2018, they only scored 43. But if you get just a few more goals out of that team, you're in the playoffs. And this is a club that 5 years, no playoffs, and going from a club that was drawing huge numbers at the Citrus Bowl, packing the place out at now Exploria Stadium, to seeing a lot of empty seats. I mean, it's understandable why they're empty. Like,
would you want to go see that?
Well, no, it's not. It's not that. It's not that. It's not the. Do you want to go see that? I mean, if you love your club, yes, you want to go see that. It's just there's been no progress. Like, there's been regression every year until this one, and it's minimal progress. I mean, you're not going to lose 22 games like you did last year, but you might not get to double-digit wins. You know, the most wins this club's ever had in its history is 12 in a season. They could have 3 single-digit win seasons. It's not just a bad product. I don't think it's that simple with Orlando. I think it's the fact that there's no real belief in it changing, because it's not a 1-year blip. It's 5.
Yeah.
Like, I think you stick with James O'Connor going into next year. I think, but I don't know. Like, he made progress on the defensive side. You have to give him that. They're a tougher team to beat. But are they better? They got to the semifinals of the Open Cup. That's progress. They've been to the quarterfinals the year before. But do you see light at the end of the tunnel at the end of the season?
No.
I don't know if you. I don't know if you don't. I don't know if you do.
It doesn't stand out. If that's,
I mean,
I could shrug my shoulders about it. I can't give you a definitive, do I see a light at the end of the tunnel? It's just kind of like, eh.
We don't know the contract situation with so many of the Orlando players, and that's a big part of this. You know, your best player has been Nani, and Nani's not a spring chicken. Nani's 32. The offseason will do him well, so he'll be back. You've got a big question up front because Dom Dwyer has not been Dom Dwyer that we've seen in this league probably since he arrived in 2017. Do you think Benji Michel can be that? Do you think Tesho Akindele can do more? Chris Mueller, I think, can be a good player in this league. Mauricio Pereira, I think, is a good signing in this league. I like what you have in the midfield with Asquez. Uri Rosell, I think, is a good player in this league. He hasn't looked like he did in Kansas City and Orlando. I really like the signing of Sebastian Mendez at 22 from Ecuador. Juan has been a really good right back. I think that was a great signing. Left back, I'm not completely convinced of Joao Moutinho. I think you might be better off to play him in a different role. Robin Janssen, good signing. Lamine Sané has been better than I expected this year. He's 32. You know, are you gonna roll with a lot of guys who have been okay, or are you gonna try to change it up? And what's your contract situation? And you added Janssen. You know, you want to keep him. I think you want to keep Juan. You want to keep Mendez. You want to keep Asquez. You want to keep Pereira. You just signed him. You'll be good there. Nani, you'll be good there. Mueller could be coming up on a deal. You got to make sure that he's going to be in the mix, and you're going to have to figure out the goal scoring. So you have a decent core, but I just don't know if you have any real answers what next year looks like right now. It feels like you could go either backwards, which would be catastrophic for the club, or with an addition or two, you can be a playoff team. But you got to get them right.
Update from Doug Robertson at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground as he's talking to Frank DeBoer now. Frank DeBoer says Joseph is day-to-day, still has pain. It's not a ligament. It's the ankle and the knee. There is nothing broken.
Yeah, it didn't look like anything broken. That's not surprising. The foot could have been if it was more of the foot, but it's I'm assuming ankle, knee, you know, you might be talking like high ankle sprain that affects the knee, and they both become kind of destabilized. Felipe Cardenas said the same. Day to day, still in a lot of pain. It's still early. We have to wait. Joseph is on crutches currently. Mention an ankle and knee. That's where you're at right now with it. There will be more coming out of the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground with Frank DeBoer, obviously, with Michael Parkhurst, who is scheduled to speak to the media. And I can't remember. You mentioned, I want to say it was either Furmeister or Doug who said that Gressel was scheduled to speak to the media today.
I think it was Furmeister, yeah.
Okay, and he was not training.
No.
Okay. So those are the things. That's where you're at right now. Follow all of the SDH All-Stars. Make sure that you know what's going on there. We will talk about all of the things that come out of the training ground on Soccer Over There today. If you can come out and hang out with us at the Brewhouse Cafe, please do so. 6 to 8 tonight. It's Jess's birthday. She's bringing a crew. I have been told that Kelly Francis will be there as well. So there will be lots of the SDH universe what was it? The Galaxy of Stars, is that what they said? The Playtone Galaxy of Stars and that thing you do?
Yeah, sounds good.
I think it was the Galaxy of Stars. So the SDH Galaxy of Stars will be on hand at the Brew House tonight, 6 to 8. We'll talk a lot of Atlanta United, but we'll also talk about England. Manchester United looks like a dumpster fire these days. Barcelona, not exactly looking all that great either. Lots of talking points in Europe, lots of talking points as they are just over a week away from Boca River Copa Libertadores. We'll get you an update on Liga MX as well. All kinds of things to get into today. We'll also probably hope to hear some things out of NYC as they travel back. Maybe we'll get some updates out of our friend Glenn Crooks as to Anton Tinnerholm, Keaton Parks, Eber, Maxi Morales. They have a lot of questions as well. All kinds of stuff. So take a break. Have your Twitter notifications on. We'll be back at 6 o'clock, and we'll keep you updated on all of it. Thanks, everybody, for all of the over-under on par reactions today. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.